What is good, YouTube? It's your boy Boy back with another video, and in today's video I'm going to be going over arguably the most powerful and most popular team in the Open Great League, and this team consists of Medicham, Noctowl, and Lantern. And you can really run these Pokemon in any order, but I've chosen to run it with the Medicham lead just because I do see a lot of Galarian Stunfisk leads, and a lot of people might criticize this order here just because it is ABA Week 2 Trevenant, but I've only seen 2 Trevenant in my whole 25 game run with this team that I had yesterday, and I was able to go positive in every set, and I gained 200 ELO back, going from like 23 30 something to 26 30 something. So this is going to be one of those sets there, and yeah, without further ado, let's get into these battles here. So first match, we have the Umbreon lead, and this is pretty good for the Medicham here, as you are doing super effective with the counter, but it's not the greatest as well, since I do think the Umbreon can win in one of the shielding scenarios, but I don't remember which, just because they do get to those foul plays pretty quickly. But here I'm getting a little scared just because they did shield up my Thunderbolt, and ideally I would want to maintain alignment with the Medicham on the Umbreon here, so I'm going to bait with this Surf here just because it does seem like they want Switchback. And as you're going to see here, knowing the fast move timing is very critical. I do think I let one sneak through earlier, but now I'm going to throw on good timing from now on. So this is going to put the Alolan Ninetales here very low, and we're barely able to farm them down with like 1 HP. So looks like here it's going to be Double Charm. So thankfully I was able to maintain switch, and we should be able to get a couple sky attacks off before they're able to hit us with an ice beam. And then we still have our Medicham ready for the Umbreon there. So thank God for the wing attack buff in this scenario, as we were able to get to our sky attacks relatively quickly here. And then from this point on, it should be pretty straightforward, and the opponent knows that, and they concede the match. So next match here, we have the Trevenant lead. So I kind of stay in here a little bit just because our Noctowl is our hard answer, so we kind of want to damage this thing a little bit. And most Trevenant that I've played, they generally don't shield the first Ice Punch. And then I'm going to try to catch a move on my Noctowl, but they hold on to the energy, and they bring in an Umbreon here. So all I know is in this scenario, there is a chance for me to maintain switch if I play it correctly and my opponent decides not to shield some of my moves here. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to maintain switch here, even if I do have to go down 2 shields, just because my only answer to that Trevenant is my Noctowl here basically. And also another thing I have to be mindful of is, even if I am able to somehow make it out of this matchup here, I have to preserve my Noctowl too. So obviously they're not likely to bring the Trevenant back in if I am able to maintain switch. So we are able to do that. And then they bring in a Lantern, so I have to swap into my Medicham here. And most likely the Trevenant is going to come back in here to finish off my Medicham. But now after that, we're going to be able to align our Noctowl to this Trevenant here and take it out. And then we have our full health Lantern with their kind of beat up Lantern. So we should be in a pretty solid spot here. Any move they throw isn't going to KO from this range. And actually, maybe a Shadow Ball would have been pretty close, but thankfully they only went for a Seed Bomb, and I'm going to be able to get this Shadow Ball off. So this kind of dings up the Lantern a little bit, and then now you're going to see that I have my own full health Lantern, and they concede the match there. So a little bit of a misplay by the opponent, just because they did have the Lantern, as you saw there, so they could have easily brought that into my Noctowl, and then we would have been pretty hard walled in that matchup there. But once again, guys, you gotta realize that, you know, every team has a core breaker in one way or another, and it's just what you're willing to be weak to, and if you see that thing very often or not. So you kind of do have to play odds sometimes when you are in the GBL. So in this matchup here, we have Dragonite and Medicham, and I switch out after I'm throwing an Ice Punch, grabbing a shield. Those Dragon Breaths were really adding up, and typically with Dragonite you do tend to see a Steel type in the back, so I kind of do want to preserve my Medicham. So now we have our Noctowl locked onto this Lantern, and looks like it's lagging a little bit here, which is unfortunate for me. Hopefully I don't have to re-record this, but it looks like it might be okay now. So I'm gonna bring the lantern in, I think, actually, here to get some extra farm in. And then we should be able to threaten the Dragonite with some energy here. Since they are pretty low, like even a Surf probably from this range will be doing enough to at least put it close to being farmed down. And they do bring the Dragonite in. I throw the Surf, and let's see what the opponent decides to do here. They actually shield, so I'm one away from the Ice Punch. I go ahead and throw that. So then it just kind of depends on what is in the back. So, and I was correct, of course, with the Steel type being in the back, and it's a good thing I did preserve my Medicham. So also, yeah, you definitely want to think about what your opponent's running when you're playing and kind of play accordingly. So in this case, pretty obvious that they did have the Stunfisk in the back here. So I don't know if this actually KOs. It ended up KOing, but at this point we probably can reach a Surf, but they kind of make a misplay there, right? Because I think we would have CMP tied, and I actually don't know who wins that CMP tie, but they would have gotten some extra mud shots off, and then they would have been able to spark me down. So them trying to catch there gave me a win con, or maybe they had to make the catch because Lantern actually won CMP against the Lantern there, but or what did I say? Lantern wins CMP against Stunfisk maybe, but in this match we have the Deoxys defense lead, and typically when you see Deoxys defense, a pretty popular team that's been going around right now is a variation of the classic triple counter team. So you're gonna have Deoxys, Obstagoon, and then instead of the Vigoroth, like you're gonna have the double here. Sometimes you will see the Vigoroth as well, but kind of how you do want to play this out is you want to preserve your Medicham, and you can really safe swap into either the Noctowl or the Lantern. Like they both do just as well against Deoxys in the 1 shield, and in the 2 shield they do perform similarly against the Obstagoon as well. And if the opponent does swap in Obstagoon, it does get a little bit scary just because the Obstagoon can beat both the Noctowl and the Lantern in the 2 shields, but typically you do want to try to maintain switch so that you can have your Medicham aligned with the Obstagoon here, even if you do end up having to go down a shield. But in this scenario we were able to get shields down, and now it should be pretty straightforward, even though we're probably going to lose this matchup here with the Lantern versus Deoxys in the 0 shield. Still should be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get this Thunderbolt off. And I think Deoxys is supposed to throw like a Thunderbolt and then double Psycho Boost here to take me out, but looks like they're going to go for another Thunderbolt here, and that kind of allows me to take them out in this scenario, but they actually end up surrendering, realizing that they're going to lose this match here. So next match we have the Medicham into Bastiodon. So when you have a matchup this dominant, like you kind of do want to maintain swap, but the saving grace is that your Lantern in the back also has some pretty good play against the Bastiodon, although not as good as your Medicham. So I'm going to try to maintain switch here, even if it does end up costing me a shield. I still kind of want to have it aligned that way, and typically you'll see a Medicham if you do see the Sableye. Like the Bastiodon Sableye Medicham is a pretty classic line, and sometimes you'll see Trevenant instead of the Sableye. So just some tips for playing against other variations of this team, right? Like say for example the Trevenant team, typically if they do run the Trevenant, they'll swap in their Medicham. So you do want to preserve your Noctowl in that scenario for the Trevenant in the back. So you might want to stay in with your Medicham actually, and then win that matchup since you're going to be a counter ahead, or swap out at some point into your Lantern after, you know, chipping up the Medicham a little bit. But you do not want to swap your Noctowl into that Medicham. So but at this point it's pretty straightforward, right? Like we won the switch, and then now we have our Lantern against their Medicham, and then we most likely will go down at this in this matchup at some point, but we still have our Medicham against the Bastiodon, which is like a very, very dominant matchup. So Opponent here looks like they're going for a pretty aggressive farm. And I'm going to be able to get this Thunderbolt off. And their win con kind of is just to farm us down. But we're going to be able to reach a Surf there. They definitely had a move and they could have taken us out. But they needed to chip up our Medicham a little bit to have a shot at winning this. So yeah, that's all for these battles here. We were able to go 5-0. So again, able to go plus 200 ELO more or less in about 5 sets, or 5 sets exactly rather. So I still haven't played my sets for today, but hoping to climb some more past this point, as I did drop quite a bit of ELO at the end of the last Master League Cup there. So that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and also submit your battles in the link in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one.